thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. Download the app today.
This is Up for a Chat with your hosts, Cindy O'Meara and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Cindy O'Meara.
And I'm Kim Morrison. What an exceptional guest we have on the show with us this week. Beautiful Lisa Tamati, an amazing, exquisite soul. Not only is she a motivational speaker, she's also a genetics practitioner. She's a health optimization coach. She's totally into longevity and aging with grace. She also runs hyperbaric oxygen therapy and red light therapy clinic. This woman is a qualified epigenetics and DNA exquisite consultant, as I mentioned, and there's so much more to this amazing soul, someone who's been on her own journey and has certainly learned a lot through experiencing what it means to be truly healthy. Welcome to Up for a Chat, beautiful Lisa.
Hello, lovely ladies. It's so nice to be here again with you. It's been too long between chats.
Oh, you have done so much over the years, and I know we are both super excited to dive deep. If someone hasn't heard of Lisa Tamati, perhaps you could give us a little brief background, your story, and how your endurance in marathons has also really transferred across into the endurance of dealing with and living with how the medical system works. Can you give us a little background, my love?
Yes, well, like you, Kim, I was a crazy ultramarathon runner, and I did 25 years of racing in the world's toughest endurance events and had lots of adventures and led and participated in different expeditions around the globe, everywhere from Death Valley to Australia to the Himalayas, all over the place, running 70,000 kilometres and 140-odd ultramarathons in that time. And the funny thing is I was absolutely hopeless as a runner. I just did it. So I had no talent whatsoever. So that's sort of my backstory, and I wrote a couple of books about my adventures and the highs and lows of what you learn when you're doing extreme sports and pushing your body to the limits, because I certainly did that. And then 9 years ago, life sort of came and hit me in the face when my mum had a massive aneurysm and stroke and was left with major, major brain damage. And she was lucky to survive it all. And we had a medical misadventure from the get-go, which sort of put me on hyper alert. They diagnosed her with a migraine instead of a deadly aneurysm, blood in the brain. So that sort of was a huge journey to go on with her. And, we had some fabulous surgeons that managed to save her life. But at the age of 74, she was left with massive, massive brain damage. So after the critical phase of, being in and out of coma, she came through it, but she had hardly any higher function. She was sort of like a baby in a woman's body, no idea who she was or what she was. And so I was sort of presented with this problem and no medical background at that stage. And I was just absolutely desperate to help her and to get her back to full health. And I was told it's point blank, absolutely impossible. The brain damage is so massive, she's never going to do anything again. And my word, were they wrong. So let's start there.
Well, I think that's just a phenomenal story in itself. And I would call your story a journey of true, pure love. Our mums do everything for us to bring us into this world and raise us and gift to us the absolute gift of life. Was that how you felt about your mum? Not only, of course, the attachment, but the fact that you could actually give her the time to help her heal?
Yeah, it was like my mum had always been sort of one of those absolutely amazing mothers who just sacrificed everything for her family. And that's what probably put her in this position, because she never looked after her own health. It was always looking after everybody else and, and half the neighbourhood's kids and everybody except herself. And so she was in this position. And when this happened, she had dedicated her life to the three of her children and looking after us. And she'd accompanied me on a lot of my races, the ones that she could do that weren't too dangerous. And, she accompanied me when I ran through New Zealand, and I did 2,250 Ks in 42 days. And she drove the car at 9K an hour for 42 days behind me. That's sort of a dedicated mother. And so when this happened, it was like, right, now it's my turn. And I didn't have a medical background, but what I had was a really bloody-minded determination. I'd been always told, Kim, and you know this from your story too, that you can't do this. It's impossible to, like you become a world champion ultramarathon runner, or you can't run across the Sahara, you can't do this or that. And they'd always been wrong. So I just looked at this as like, well, this doctor or that doctor doesn't know everything in the universe, and I'm going to go and find doctors and scientists and people that do know something, and I will go and research, and I will fight with every ounce of my body to get her back. And that's exactly what I did. So I dived deep into the research, and the first thing I came up with was hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and I'm actually sitting in my hyperbaric clinic at the moment doing this podcast. That was a game changer for our rehabilitation, and was the first thing I sort of came across. And just in a nutshell, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is it's hyper-oxygenating the body, it's lowering inflammation levels in the body, it's increasing stem cell production, and it can get more oxygen through the blood-brain barrier to where it's really needed when you have a brain injury in this case. It's also good for many, many, many other things, but for brain injuries and cognitive decline and traumatic brain injuries and things like that, strokes, brilliant. So it was really hard to get her access to this, but I found a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I actually approached a dive company that had a hyperbaric chamber, because they use this for divers when they get the bends, and said, hey, this is my research, this is my problem, can I please use your chamber? And these amazing people said yes. And so that was the beginning of my journey with hyperbaric. And we did session after session. Like, it's not something you do once and you're fixed. It's more like, repeatedly going to the gym, and every time you get a little bit better. So you have to sort of do a block of treatments at least to see the benefit. And then I started studying, what else is there? What else is because nobody knew about hyperbaric oxygen for brain injuries in my town, or even in the country. So it was like, what else do they not know? And then I just dived down deep into the world of biohacking and longevity research, and just came up with one gemstone after another, so to speak. And I did things like the keto diet, and I did, functional physio. I studied everything I could with neuroscience, so that I understood as much as I could about the brain. And I just haven't come out the other side, basically. It took me 2.5 years to get her back to full health again. To spoil the story, I've written a book about this called Relentless, and every step along the way, the medical profession just told us she's never going to do anything. You're wasting your time. Why are you putting her through this arduous training? Because, like, I am an athlete, I'm a hard ass, I'm a hard coach. When it comes to training, I know how to grind out thousands of hours of training. And so I knew that she was going to have to go through thousands of hours of retraining her brain. And that's exactly what we did, off the backdrop of having, hyperbaric and other things that were in the mix. So there was no magic bullet. There was no one thing, but that whole approach, everything that I put in, like, there are so many things that we can do for brain injuries, for Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, and that's an area that I specialize in now. Everything from, photobiomodulation, which is like red light therapy, through to ketones, through to different medications, through to supplements, through to things like plasmalogens, and all sorts of things that we can put in the mix. And when people get diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, and they think it's the end of the road, I'm like, hell no, it's not. That's just the beginning. There's so much that we can do. But it does require that you put in a lot of effort if you want to sort of come back off the edge. And, with my mum, it took me about 1.5 years to get her out of the wheelchair and walking again, because she'd lost her complete vestibular system. So that retraining was really difficult, especially because she had swelling on the brain that was never diagnosed until recently. So that's always been one of the limiting factors. So she's always still had vestibular problems and balance problems. So she's had a lot of falls along the way. So she's had repeated concussions as well as she learned to walk again. But we got her back. She got her full driver's license back, full independence back. Life was going along swimmingly. and an incredible journey. And I wrote a book, about that journey. And then, unfortunately, my father had an aneurysm in the stomach this time, not in the brain, say an aortic aneurysm, 4 years ago now. And he was left in the ICU, having had a massive operation to save his life. Incredible surgeons, what they did, but it was huge surgery. And they said, look, he's really amazing that he survived because he was 81, but he was incredibly strong and fit. He was one of these, outdoors people, he was always had his hands in the dirt and in the sun. So he was quite healthy, except the fact that Dad smoked his whole life, right? And we could never stop him smoking and eating too many pies. And so he'd ended up in this situation probably. But when we were in this situation, he was in ICU and he developed sepsis off the back of the surgery. And I knew the research because I'd done lots of research into something called intravenous vitamin C. And I knew the research for sepsis and vitamin C. And I tried to get my father access to this very basic medicine, if you like, and came up against a brick wall. And I had professors on my side. I had all the clinical research. I had everything. And I just got stonewalled by the ICU team and the ethics committee, not allowing me. And I said, look, he's dying. You've got no more options. Why the hell can't I try something that's in the literature to prove that it drops mortality rates by 50%? Why the hell would you not let me do it? And they said, because it's a legal thing, because we'll be in trouble if something goes wrong. I said, but he's dying. I'll sign whatever you want me to sign. And these people just fought me, and they said, you have to get the signature of every single person in this whole of the IC unit, which was some 36 odd people, plus the whole ethics committee. Now, that took me 16 days of fighting for him while I was, standing by his bedside fighting for him. And them trying to take him off life support and me fighting to get access to this. So that was a huge traumatic experience for me. And at the end of it, I won the right to give him vitamin C, but by the time I won the right, it was too late. And he was already in multiple organ failure. And I found a loophole in the law where my GP could come into the hospital and deliver it, which she did. And we got the first one in, and all his markers turned around, and he started to, pick up. They got him off noradrenaline, which is to keep your blood pressure up. His CRP dropped massively, one of the inflammatory markers. All the markers were improving. And then they stopped me doing the second and the third and the fourth. Every infusion, because you needed it 6 hourly, was the protocol. Massive doses of vitamin C. Because basically what happens when you have any sort of infection or sepsis or these sorts of things, your amount of vitamin C in the body just gets used up, and you basically have a scurvy-like presentation. So your body just starts to fall apart. So if you can get massive dosages of vitamin C, and this is the work of Dr. Paul Marek and Dr. Thomas Levy and Dr. Ron Hunninghake and Dr. Klenner, and there's just like dozens and dozens of doctors who know this medicine, but it's just not seeing the light of day. The long story short, they forced me to take him off life support a couple of days later and lost my dad, So that made me into the strongest advocate and activist in the space that you can possibly imagine, because our medical system is not in a good state, and it's very reactive. It's not preventative. It's not about health optimization. It's about money. I'll just say it as it is, how I see it, after having experienced it over and over and over again. So that's sort of, I don't know if you guys want to chime in with any questions here at any time, but that sort of was part 2 of the story, and then there's another part to it as well, but I'll let you guys come to it.
No, we'll hear the next part as soon as we can. I agree with you regarding Paul Marek's work on the vitamin C. They've shown that it is far better than antibiotics, and that's what they do for sepsis, is do the antibiotics. But there's no money in it. This is the issue. Like you said, the health system is failing us. It's not looking at the root cause. It's always looking, and don't get me wrong, they do in emergency situations, as your mother came and your father, they both were in that emergency situation where medicine is also needed. But it's
Absolutely.
almost like there's these protocols, like when we went through the COVID, remdesivir was the drug of choice, but that was seeming to kill more people than help it. And nobody was wanting to give ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or
Exactly.
vitamin D. And I've just been listening to this amazing doctor talking about vitamin D. If the vitamin D was at a certain level, and I don't remember the level in the blood, what it was, that people wouldn't die of COVID.
Yep.
Yet they weren't
Absolutely.
allowed to give. Yeah, they weren't allowed to give this. So I
Yeah,
feel
just
for you.
basics, like
You're right.
absolute basic nutrient deficiencies, like and vitamin D is one of the key factors, and you want it around the 130 odd mark. And where was that conversation during COVID? Why were we not allowed to? Even magnesium, another key factor, like everyone's magnesium deficient. And we're living in a toxic environment. I mean, let's be honest. So we need more of the nutrients than our grandparents needed because we're not living in the optimal world like they were as far as food production and things go, and the amount of toxins that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And these basic supplements, like my top four, if I can only pick four, it would be vitamin C and probably magnesium first. Vitamin C would be second, intravenous and oral. And then vitamin D3 with K2 would be the next one. And well, probably number four, zinc's pretty way up there. But one of my new favorites is methylene blue, which we can talk about later if you want to. But if we just had some of the basics on board, then we would be able to prevent a lot of the worst outcomes, at least, instead of just this one-sided approach that we had that was wrong, just absolutely wrong. I can't say anything about it, but that it was right. There was just nothing right about it. I mean, I interview professors and doctors and scientists every single week and have done for 9 years. And I ask them all off air what their take is on what we went through. And there has only ever been one who's come back and said that was the best thing ever. That's what, that the vaccine that came out was good. Off air, all of them were like, hell no. This was not ready for prime time, and hell no. And these are all the outcomes that are going to come off the back of it. And, without going too far down that rabbit hole, that's what they had. The people, the people who are in this area of science who are developing vaccines even, I've spoken to them and they was like, this was not ready for prime time and we're going to see some massive consequences, and we are seeing massive consequences. Yeah. And it's not just that one thing. There's other, things like vitamin C have got a history of 80 years, but nobody can make money out of that. Nobody can make money out of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Nobody can make money out of magnesium. These are all unpatentable, and all of the research has to be patentable if they're going to go and spend billions. It's just the way. I don't even think it's just that there's evil big corporations. It's just also the way that it's evolved, that it's like turning a cruise ship, as one of my mentors said to me, like it's trying to get a massive cruise ship to change direction. It just takes years. And so what you see in research, if you go to the front of the line and look at the current research, if you're dealing with whatever ailment you're dealing with, you'll be miles ahead than any doctor in your local surgery that's dealing with hundreds of different ailments all the time and hasn't got the time to study. And medical knowledge is doubling every 72 days, apparently, doubling every 72 days. So there is not a human being on the planet who can keep up with it. And so we can't expect that our doctors can keep up with it even if they wanted to, because they're humans and have so many hours per day to do this stuff. So that puts the ball in your court, because we've got the power now. There are no longer gatekeepers who can keep us out of having that knowledge. So if you're dealing with some particular ailment, if you go deep diving into that that disease or that ailment and what's the latest research, and I've actually done a course with Dr. Elizabeth Yurth, who's one of my mentors and a world-renowned cellular health expert in regenerative medicine. and we did a course on what to fix first and how not to die. And it's called Health Span Hacks. And it was all about how do you do the research? How do you vet the information that's coming through? How do you make your own judgments and be your own advocate and be educated so that you can look after your own health? Because if you just sit back and give the reins to some other person, you'll be sorely disappointed. And you'll be, it can be a life and death decision that you're giving over the reins to anybody. You have to put in the hard yards, do the research yourself. If you put on a drug, go and research that drug. Go and find out all the side effects. If you're told to have a surgery, go and watch that surgery on YouTube because you'll find the video on it. I tell you, when you go and do that, you might, make a more informed decision about what you're going to do.
This is really powerful. And I think what you're teaching, dear Lisa, is the power of not thinking that everybody out there, my grandmother, her generation believed doctors were the be all and end all. They knew everything. My grandmother was told to start smoking when Granddad went to war as a form of stress relief. So, they do get it wrong.
I rest my case. Yeah. And thalidomide was safe. And,
thalidomide.
Oral contraceptives and, there's just so many things that there were side stories to all of that,
And proof that they do the best they can with the knowledge they have at the time. But I love doctors that are willing to say, we're sorry, or our forefathers got that wrong, or we're doing it this way. I'm just curious. Not many people have the vigilance, the tenacity, and the endurance to cope with what you, your mum, and even your dad went through. Is this something that you see yourself as a trailblazer on behalf of those who say they can't or couldn't or wouldn't do this? Because so many of us want to campaign like you, yet I'm not sure we'd have the balls or the nous to really stand up against these people. What was your driving factor? Did it come back to that love of your mum and your love of your dad? Like, what was your driving force?
I mean, I don't see myself as strong. I see myself often as too weak. Why am I not standing up more? Why am I not doing more? Why am I not strong enough to actually say everything I actually want to say? And, I have tried in the past, and then you get completely taken down, like the censorship is real. And it's a fine line when you're not, say, Joe Rogan, and you don't have billions in the bank, and you've got to feed your family, and you have to fight against these, forces, if you like, that are trying to stop good information getting out. It's a really fine line, and I have this conversation a lot with my family, with my husband. He's more like, oh, you shouldn't say that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't fight back because they're bigger than you, they're stronger than you, and they will take you down. And then I see really brave, courageous people, and I go, I want to be like that. I want to have as much integrity. And I don't think I'm a pimple on their backsides of those people, some of those big, amazing people that we have in our world that are standing up for truth. So I think we're all on this, continuum of how strong are we? And we just have to take it day by day. And how brave am I going to be? And I think what ultramarathon taught me, Kim, you will understand this, is I get broken, I get grumpy at mum, I get impatient, I'm not the perfect person, I cry a lot, I'm broken as much as the next person, but the thing is, I get up the next day and I do it all again, and I do it all again, and I do it all again, and I don't give up. I might moan and complain and, bitch about the situation, but as you do when you're running your ultramarathon, you're absolutely exhausted and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I just can't even take another step. And then you do. And then you take another, and then you take another, and you just get back up. And that's, I think, the biggest learning from my sport wasn't the medals, the podium places or the whatevers. It was the fact that I learned to fight, and I learned to get back up and take one more step, even when I'm feeling broken, even when I'm exhausted. And I think that's a super valuable lesson, and I keep hoping that, things will get easier. You live with a hope and dream that some good things will come your way and things will get easier. But, sometimes you're challenged with these things, and you just got to rise to the occasion. And why I'm now working in this space and have my podcast podcast and run my clinic and am a health consultant. There are easier ways to make a living for sure, but I'm having as big an impact on the world as I can have right now, and I hope to have a bigger impact in the future and have more resources at my disposal to do more. But in the meantime, I'm doing what I can with what I have. And that's all I can do. And I keep learning, and I seek out amazing teachers, and I just sit at their feet and I suck it all in, and every day is a learning day. And I just feel like I'm just so blessed with some of the teachers that I've had over the years and mentors, and I can then get to share their knowledge with my people, with my audience, with my clients, and I just want to stop people having the horrific experiences that I've had, both in the medical world and also just because you've had these diseases come along and nearly wipe you out. There is nothing more important in the world than your health. I don't, I work with billionaires on a daily basis. They're not happy. What's the only thing that's most important is that you have your health. If you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health, you've got nothing. You're going to die like the rest. We're all going to die, but I want to die, as late as possible in as good a shape as possible. I was watching an 80-year-old lady doing these toes to bar things and handstands and headstands, and I was like, yeah, that's my role model, that's what I want to be. And I tried to do some of the stuff I watched her doing at the gym, and I'm going, okay, I've got a way to go.
We heard Cindy and I heard a person speak, and they said it's not about health span anymore. We can all live to 72 perhaps. Lifespan. It's more about health span.
Absolutely.
And what you're saying here, I'm just curious from the point of view, out of the 9 years you've been podcasting, interviewing some of the world leaders in this alternative and beautiful, not even alternative, it's actually kind of probably quite
cutting edge.
That's it. That's the word. But what have you learned? What has been your biggest lessons, or what have been some of the standout takeaways that you've had from some of these extraordinary people you've interviewed?
Yeah, oh gosh, it's just a really tough one, Kim, because there's so many. We could go and run down rabbit holes till the cows come home, because there's always a new kid on the block. There's always a new thing that you're studying, the new technology, that you're diving deep into in the moment. And everything's always the latest and greatest. I've got shiny object syndrome for sure. I think the number one, if you ask me what's the number one aging hack, it's a boring answer of exercise. Like, that is the number one thing that you can do to stave off cancer, to stave off cardiovascular disease, to stave off all of the diseases of aging, is regular exercise. And by that, I also mean weight-bearing exercise and weight training and physically lifting heavy stuff, not just cardio. Cardio is important, and all aspects of fitness are important. So where I used to be an ultramarathon runner and all I did was run, and that's all I ever did, and I just ran slowly because that's all I had to do. Now I understand I need to go to the gym and I need to lift weights, or at least do body weight exercises if I can't go to the gym. I need to do yoga. I need to do balance work. I need all of these aspects. I need functional movements. I love to get in the garden and pull heavy stuff and cut stuff down and, do all that physical labor, because all of those are practical primal moves that we lose as we get older. I like to test myself. What's your grip strength like? What's your balance like? Can you still do a headstand? Can you still do the splits? Can you, all of those things that I did as a 10-year-old, can I still do them now? And that's my goal, to maintain all of those as I get older. So now it's not about like, can I run 100 Ks or can I run 200 Ks? It's like, what's going to serve me? And for me and for my genetics personally, ultramarathoning was not the optimal. So after I studied genetics, I sort of realized, hang on a minute, no wonder I've been having all these health issues. I'm not genetically suited to the sport that I've actually chosen. And so from that point on, I pivoted. That wasn't until I was about 48. And I'm fitter, stronger, and healthier now than I ever was at 25. I mean, now I've got a six-pack. Now I'm ripped. Now I'm lean. Not that those things are important from an aesthetic point of view, it is that they are important from a metabolic point of view. Whereas at 25, I was slightly overweight. I was amazingly good at running long distances, and that was it. I was flaccid. I had too much fat tissue. I had inflammation up the wazoo because I trained too much. My hormones were out of balance. All of these things because of the sport that I'd chosen. I did it to extreme. So I've now learned what's going to give me longevity, just for me personally. And this is not necessarily the advice for you. And this is why I love genetics, because we can work out what particular exercises for you are going to work best. But I would generally say after the age of 40, you really got to focus more and more on building muscle. Muscle is the currency of longevity. And it's not sexy, it's not cool, it's not a therapy, but that's, a very important piece. Now, the other thing I would say is there are a lot of people who are now already too sick to exercise. So like people like my mum, who got limited, ability, limited energy, mitochondrial dysfunction. She's had, we go into that story a little bit later, a cancer story, but she's got limited ability. She can't go for a 5K run, right? And never will. So we've got to work within the bounds of what she's capable of. And then I've got to use cheating ways to mimic exercise and to mimic fasting. And there are supplements and there are programs that we can do that can support some of the biochemical pathways that these things actually cause. So when you exercise, you're doing certain genetic changes. You're turning on and off certain genes. You're upregulating some things and downregulating others. And there are things that we can use that are exercise mimetics, and there are things we can use that are fasting mimetics if you can't fast, So all of these things are a little bit cheap ways of getting around it if you've got someone who has disabilities or is extremely fatigued and things like that. The other thing I'm a big fan of is optimizing your hormones. And more and more, I'm learning more and more. I've got a lot more to learn, but on peptides. So peptides are getting more and more difficult to get, unfortunately, because as usual, powers that be are trying to stop things that work. But peptides are sort of they're small protein molecules, if you like, or chains of amino acids between 2 and 49 amino acids. So when you get a protein, it's usually over 50 amino acids all strung together in different combinations to create proteins. Now, peptides are little fractions of that. So they might be 3, 4, 10 amino acids in a certain sequence, and they're like instruction manuals for your body to make something. So it's like giving your body a recipe to go and make this enzyme or this protein, I should say, a protein to go and do something. So there are peptides for everything. So I'll give you an example of one. One of my favorites is thymosin alpha-1, and this gives you back the thymus function. So our thymus is a massive gland in our chest that's huge when we're babies and then gets bigger up until the age about puberty. And it's what teaches our immune system what's a goodie, what's a baddie, what's to attack, what's self, what's not self, so that we start to attack the viruses and the pathogens and so on without attacking our own tissues. Now, as we get older, we start to often develop autoimmune diseases. Our immune system starts to go awry and actually starts to become our enemy. And, we've all heard of cytokine storms, for example, during COVID. So thymosin alpha-1 can give us back the thymic function of a younger person, just putting it very oversimplified. That's one of the things. There's other ones like BPC 157, which is a gastric peptide that was actually isolated in the gastric juices. And this is a body protective compound, BPC 157 it's called. And this is everything from brain injuries to cardiovascular health to digestive health to repairing tendons and ligaments to helping after surgery. It's one of my go-tos, and that one's available orally. So we can get that one, So some of these are injectables and some of them are available orally as supplement forms. So that whole world of peptides, I would really love to see come more and more to the fore. And again, one of my teachers is very, very skilled in peptide use, and I just wish we had a legal framework to use it more down in New Zealand, and I dare say in Australia as well, although I think you've got a few clinics that are doing it over there. So that's a really huge area of passion of mine at the moment. And there's one of the other things is red light therapy, in particular for Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. I'm about to get something called a neuronic, which is a 1070 nanometer helmet that you put on your head, and really is lots of research around it for helping people with Alzheimer's and traumatic injury and stroke and that sort of thing. So really diving into that research at the moment, and excited to try that on my mum. So yeah, there's just so many things. So we live in an exciting universe of burgeoning longevity things coming on the market. And so my motto now is to stay alive long enough to see these breakthroughs and to benefit from all of these breakthroughs as they start to happen, and to be involved at that cutting edge. And I'm doing a course at the moment, or we're making a course. So Dr. Bill Andrews, who's the number one telomere scientist in the world. Telomeres are like the shoe caps at the end of your chromosomes that get shorter as you age, and it's one of the limiting factors for human longevity. And so we're doing a course together on curing aging. And so, bringing all these courses and things to fruition with these great scientists and sharing their deep knowledge and helping them translate it for the lay public is my job now. One of them. Yeah.
Oh, Cindy, I was thinking she was coming in there, and I just was so blown away by listening to all of this. And I find it fascinating. You ask a question, what's your biggest takeaway over 9 years? My gosh. I would imagine, but I also imagine, don't be sorry, I imagine over all of these years, you've probably made friends with a lot of these incredible people, and they have actually supported you in your quest for what you're doing for your mum and what you did for your dad. What or who, is there anyone in particular you really want to give a plug to that really supported you to you said fight, to fight the establishment and the status quo? Who were some of your biggest supporters in what you were trying to do?
Yeah, I think my number one teacher and mentor, and the person I learned the most from, is Dr. Elizabeth Youth of the Boulder Longevity Institute. And she actually has an academy that you guys could come and join. It's the best education you will ever get for next to nothing. And every month she does Q&As and does courses, and she's the scientific advisor for my new biotech company, Avum Labs, that we're just launching in August. And so I'm just super excited to have, this caliber of person backing the formulations that we're making so that we get it right and we do it right. She's been the biggest influence in my life, absolutely huge. She's also mum's top physician, if you like. I've got a lot of people on mum's team, if you like, of doctors, and they all have different specialties, but she's the boss. And whatever she says, if she says jump, I ask her high, because she is incredible. So she's, I credit her with actually helping me save mum, over and over again. And mum's a miracle. Like just to get onto the third story. So 3 years ago, after Dad died, and of course all the stress of that, Mum had what looked like another stroke, and I rushed her into the hospital, and they sent me home, and I rushed her back in 2 days later with huge blood pressure, and her whole half face had dropped, and so on and so forth. And I thought another, stroke or something. They sent me home again. I fought for 3 weeks to get an MRI because she was just, gone in the brain, and I just got ignored, even after writing a book, for God's sake, even after, I don't know, it was incredible. Anyway, it took me 3 weeks. I finally got an MRI, and then we found this massive tumor in her brain and smaller tumors as well. And then they were like, oh, shit, we'll take her down to Wellington. And I chased this amazing neurosurgeon that she'd had the first time round, and I chased him around the country until I got hold of him and said, hey, I need your help again. Do you remember Isabel? And he said, yes, I remember Isabel. And this amazing surgeon said, get down here on Tuesday, we'll operate. And they took out this massive grapefruit-sized tumor in the left side of her brain. And they did the pathology on it, and it came back a very aggressive CNS lymphoma, so a very aggressive cancer. And they said, look, there's nothing we can do, and she's got weeks to live. This is very fast growing, and there's other tumours in there, and, there's nothing we can do, absolutely nothing. And I just went, that's not the truth, and I'm going to go and find people who can tell me some more. So then I dived, and I'd done some research already on cancer, but then I sort of started to go into my networks and say, who is the expert in cancer here, and started to uncover all these incredible doctors and scientists that are all talking about the metabolic approach to cancer and adjunct therapies. And I interviewed 21 of them, and I did advanced genetic testing, and I found out what drugs she would be responsive to. I found out what supplements she would be responsive to. I spent, we sold a house to finance all of this. I put 15 doctors on her team, and I just went hard out. And the upshot of it was it took us about 12 weeks to actually get rid of the tumours on the MRI. So when they took the next MRI, the tumours were suddenly gone. And they were like, they've just disappeared. We don't know why. Nobody asked me why or how or what did you do. And so I wrote a book. It's an audio book, which is the interviews with 20 of these world top experts on the metabolic approach to cancer. And it's called What Your Oncologist Isn't Telling You. And now we're nearly 3 years later, and touch wood, because you never want to say you're cured of cancer because it's a tricky beast. We're still free of cancer. She hasn't died, and they were wrong, So now I
blow my mind, Lisa. Like I'm thinking, as I'm listening to you, you are incredible in what you have done and what you've researched, and I'm going to be getting that book, that audio book on what your oncologist isn't telling you. So at the end, we will talk about where we can get all these things. I love how you defy what medicine is telling you that can't be done. But you know what really upsets me is that they're not asking you, well, what did you do? Maybe we can do this for, other people. If she's done it for this in 12 weeks, for your mother in 12 weeks. I have to ask you about your oncologist. Who was it? Are you able to say his name in New Zealand?
The one that turned mum down and told her there was nothing that could be done.
Oh, sorry, the neurologist, the brain surgeon.
Oh, God, you put me on the spot. What's his name, Doctor?
Oh. He's a metabolic neurologist.
No, he's just a brain surgeon, but an incredibly skilled surgeon. And he's actually operating on my auntie next week, and I've forgotten his name right now. I can't put it out the top of my head, but he was brilliant. And
there's one in New Zealand that is doing ketogenesis.
Oh, no. So you're talking about Matthew Phillips. So he's in the book. So he's in the book as one of the people that I interviewed. But this was a neurosurgeon that actually chopped out the actual tumor. But Dr. Matt Phillips is absolutely amazing. So he's working with a lot of glioblastoma clinical trials and fasting protocols and things like that. And he's in the book. He's incredible.
It's interesting because there's so many, like I have two friends with glioblastomas.
Yeah.
Both have gone carnivore. Both are listening to Matthew. Yep. I don't know if they've had consultations with him, but they are listening to his podcasts and
he's
finding everything about it. And one of them has chosen not to do chemo and radiation. The other one has chosen to do chemo and radiation and fasting. This man, there's no more growth. Like they've taken it out. There's no more growth. We are January, so to June. The MRI was done last week, and it's incredible. But he did the chemo and the radiation, whereas my friend who was diagnosed in December, and she's a lady in her 70s, she just had some bad seizures, had an MRI, and it's grown. So I'm going to get her that because she'll be very, very interested in what you're doing. And the amount of glioblastoma.
Oh, it's incredible.
Mind-blowing at the moment. It just
I'm working with one glioblastoma client that I've been working with now for near on 3 years, 2.5 years, I think. And she's doing exceptionally well. Like this glioblastoma, you don't usually survive very long. So let's put this in context. 2.5 years with glioblastoma is a pretty good, you're going pretty well, and she's doing really well, and I'm seeing her again next week. But that is one of the tougher ones. That is one of the toughest. That and pancreatic cancers are really, really tough, and you're not all going to have success. Like, sometimes it's too difficult, too far gone, but never accept that, fight to the end. And as long as you want to, if you want to keep living, and it should always be your own choice, not that you're pushed out the door by our medical system that's saying it's time for you to bugger off. Every time I go to the hospital, it's a bit off topic, but every single time, Isabel, sign this paper here, advanced care plan, so that we don't resuscitate you. And my mum tells them to F off every time.
Yes, I can imagine you. I can see you and your mum coming. They'll be like, shit, here they come.
Let's try and get her this time. It feels like that. It's like they're coming for you, like, stop trying to knock her off. She wants to live. And then I get people like, and I share mum's story on my Instagram and things on occasion. And, most people are just like, oh my God, she's amazing, and she's absolutely amazing. And she just keeps coming back. And then she broke her hip 3 months ago, and we've been on a hell journey on that with as well. But she's back walking now, and she's back living now, and she's going out with her girlfriends now, and she's, and I put one post up, and we were in the hospital, and we were deep in the fight again, as we've been. And I got one person just absolutely slamming her, isn't it time to let her go? And you're just putting her through torture, and you're doing this. And I'm like, and you can fuck off.
Yes.
Excuse me. Like, you don't even know us.
Yeah.
You don't even know us personally. For you to say something like that, jeez, you're an idiot. Block,
Ban and delete.
That's exactly. And I didn't even comment because I was just like, really? But, that stuck with me for the next 24 hours until I got it out of my head, because it was like, am I? And I said to Mum, you want me to keep fighting, don't you? And she says, hell yeah, I'm not ready to die. Aww. I don't want to die. And I want to be here. I want to see my grandchildren grow up.
Can I ask a quick question, and possibly to both of you? Two things. The fact that they haven't asked you what you've been doing, or that they show any interest, and they probably see you as some sort of quack who's trying all these things, and good girl, good trying, like almost I can feel it condescending. Totally. Cindy has never had an antibiotic, a drug, any form of medication, not even an over-the-counter medication in her 60 plus years of life.
That's incredible. I can't say that.
Why have they not interviewed or talked to or got her as such? She's an enigma in today's world. Yep. Why would you not be wanting to study someone like her? Exactly. And what is this about? Why are they not wanting to study what you're about?
Because we're a threat. Like I just actually filled out 2 complaint forms to the Health and Disability because of what we'd been through recently during this hip thing. So I tell you just one of these situations. We got called back after the hip thing. She had infections that she'd picked up after having the operation, and they thought she had sepsis, which I'd been saying for a good 10 days before they did anything. And then they did a culture when I took her into ED. And then they rang us and said, get back in here, the culture's come back positive. So my mum's extremely ill at this point. This is only just a few weeks ago. And she's in the ED department. We're told to get back in here now. And then we were left waiting. And then the doctor that was to see us was heard talking about me in the bullpen that they have there with all the doctors and nurses hang out. And was heard saying, oh, that Lisa's a crazy woman. She's probably caused this. She does intravenous vitamin C. She's probably made the portacath, infected, and she's a nutcase, and so on and so forth. And one of the nurses happened to be my manager's mum and a friend, and she bravely stood up to the doctor, because in this patriarchal society in there, that's pretty hard to do. And said, hang on a minute, that's completely unprofessional, and that's not acceptable, and Lisa could run in circles around you, and that's really not okay, and stormed off, and then came and told me what she'd said. And this doctor was obviously, caught out saying something inappropriate, and in a public forum there with all the other doctors. And so she decided she wouldn't see my mum. She'd wait, left us for 13 hours, a critically ill woman with possible sepsis, waiting until the next doctor came on shift so she didn't have to face me. That is wrong. So for the first time, after all the shit that I have experienced, I've never laid a complaint before, but this time I'm laying one. Yeah. Because that's not good enough. And I've just had a guts full. Yeah, because of, the fact of who I am. You might not like me, but don't take that out on my mother. My sick mother who needs to be, so that really, and she didn't even know me. She'd never met me in her life.
Lisa, like one of the things I just wrote down here, MRI, we as a consumer, do we not have a right to ask to have an MRI?
No, you can ask, but you won't get it. And I mean, I've resorted now to paying for MRIs privately when I need them because, and I didn't know actually when she got the cancer that we could actually get them. There's a new place in our town where we can actually just pay for them. But usually you have to go through the doctors, right, to get any of these scans done. And they wouldn't give me that scan. And I knew that she had something because, well, I'm with her 24/7. I've watched her come back. I know every facial movement on her. I know when half of her face is hanging off and she's not able to speak, that there's something neurological going on. And you can tell me till the cows come home that she's fine, but she's not. And I knew she wasn't. And so they just would not do an MRI because an MRI costs money. And then they did after 3 weeks, but only because I rang up the radiology and said, hey, here's my entire story. This is what's happening. And the radiologist said, get in here by 8 o'clock tomorrow and I'll do it. And I said, thanks very much. And then it was like, oh, sorry, yes, you've got tumours in the brain.
I don't know how you've kept your faith sometimes. Yeah. I mean, you're fighting a fight that not many people are willing to fight. I did just recently have back surgery. I researched it till the cows came home, watched everything. So when I went in there, I told him I knew exactly what he was doing. But he said, well, and not only that, I questioned the drugs, everything that they gave me, what, why, and how. And then secondly, on top of that, what was really interesting is, and Cindy knows this, but when the anaesthetist puts it in, and they were amazed at how small I am to have a surgery like on my back with the disc. And a lot of people are a lot older, and I said to them, well, and this is something that was fascinating. He said to me, the table you're about to be operated on used to have up to 100 kilos. Has been an anaesthetist for 20 years. 10 years ago, it became 150 kilos, and now it can hold over 200 kilos.
Yep.
And I just looked at him and I said, man, the pharmaceutical and food industry has a lot to answer for. And he was like, what? And I think he put the drugs into me to shut me up. But I was literally going in there going, how can we not question this? How are we not all looking at this? And I'm sure they put me out because I don't remember anything else. But what I do know is that one of the things that I did in preparation for this, and Cindy knows how much this means to me, but preparing myself physically, mentally, and emotionally for a year, I trained. And he said to me, you will find that because you've come into this so fit and strong, you'll recover quickly.
Absolutely.
And I think that is also the key, the choice. But your mum didn't have a choice. Your mum has been incredibly ill and had massive challenges. Now this is a woohoo question, where away from the science, and I keep coming back to it, but the vibrational frequency, the level of love, the amount of care, the bond that you've shared with her, and all the experiences you've both had around endurance and hanging in there. Is love got something to do with medicine as well, in your humble opinion? I know that's not a scientific question, but I'm just curious. Even just from a sporting perspective, let alone a spiritual perspective, but absolutely. Like again, going back to the ultramarathon analogies, because they're good ones, when you set your mind to something, you achieve it, and you won't achieve a step more. So if I set in my mind I'm going to run 20 Ks today, and then at 20 Ks I say, no, we're going to do 40, there is no way in hell you're going to make 40.
When I set in your mind that you're going to run 40 and I say to you, we're only running 20, that 20 was a piece of cake, because you've changed your mindset of the goal from the get-go.
Well, my coach used to take me on 50K training runs to make a marathon feel easy.
And exactly. Yeah. You do.
I love this.
And I think the spiritual side of it, I mean, when I lost my dad, because I'd sort of, always put death away from me because of, we're all, not all of us, but a lot of us are scared of death. And when my dad died, it just, hit me in the face that I'd actually lost him, and that I really, really struggled. Like, I know everybody struggles when they lose a loved one, but I just was just like a rudderless ship on the ocean, just like I failed him. In my head, I failed him, even though I'd fought so hard, to save his life. And I'd only ever succeeded with Mum, right? And with my dad, I was just up against a system that was bigger than me, and I couldn't save his life. And hell, that put me through hell. Like, it was so hard, so much so that, even just a few days later, I had a friend who was very spiritual, and she was sitting at the dinner table with us, and I've never told this story, but she just suddenly just grabbed my hand and she said, "He's here, and he's here to tell you something. Sorry, that he's in a good place, and that it's not your fault that you failed, that it wasn't you, and that he's in a good place." And that was the first sort of. And then, I mean, my friend she'd never experienced anything like this in her life either, to this degree, and she was quite shaken by it, that he'd come through so strongly, because I think Dad knew that I was really struggling to carry on at that point. And that gave me strength to think that he was in a good place, and that I'd done everything I could at that time, and that I was to be there and be strong for Mum and to carry on. And he actually said at the table, I'm not, because, he asked, have you got a message from Mum? And he said, "Oh, Mum's so strong. She doesn't need a message from me. She's fine. It's Lisa I'm worried about." And that was quite a strong moment for me. And that gave me strength to carry on and fight for her, knowing that he's with me and that he's fighting on the other side for me. And that's what I believe now. And we never have any proof of that, but that's what I feel. And yeah, Mum and I have been through so much together, and don't get me wrong, we bicker and fight like cats and dogs sometimes because I'm impatient as hell, and I'm like, "Hurry up, get this done." I'm like Sergeant Major. But that's just our rhythm, that's just how we operate. And she's one of these super strong, quiet, stoic people, that just gets on with the job. And that's why she's still here.
Strong.
Yeah.
She has to be strong to go through what she's been through.
Oh, God, yeah.
Lisa, I could keep asking you a million questions, but our hour is up. But what I do want to ask you is, I want to know where we get that audio. Where do we get your book? How do people consult with you? Can you give us everything so that people can contact you? Because I might be one of them, and I know there'll be lots of other people that would probably want to consult with you. So I think you're the most research person. You need a PhD. A PhD is what I think you should get from whatever university you're near, because I don't know anyone that does what you do. And I've spoken to lots of people, as you have, as Kim has, and I'm just not sure I've ever met somebody who has your breadth of knowledge when it comes to, first of all, neurological problems, and secondly, cancer and metabolic, and we could go on.
Genetics.
Genetics and
hyperbaric chambers, infrared. I mean, we haven't even talked water and air and food and nutrition. We haven't done any of that yet.
I know.
Like, we all bring a little bit of something to the table, and I'm humbled by the people that I learn from, because I will never be as good as any of those, but I spend time to be good as a generalist across a number of, and the interesting thing that my brain starts to connect dots when you've interviewed like hundreds of doctors in different genres, and then you start connecting your own dots together. That starts to become interesting, and you start to, create sort of new, I wonder about that. And sometimes you get to share with a scientist and they've gone, I've never thought about it like that before, because you've had this sort of unusual educational background. It's not your standard sort of background. But I would love to hear from people. I mean, sorry for crying on this podcast. I don't usually, but that's just typical of Cindy and Kim. They bring out the emotions in people because they're so real and honest. And I love you guys. I think you're beautiful. And, I just love your work. So people can reach out to me. Just lisatamati.com is my website. And then I have a podcast that Kim and Cindy have been on and need to come on again. Guys, hurry up. Yeah, so Pushing the Limits is the name of the podcast. And I have a YouTube channel, just Lisa Tamati. Search Lisa Tamati on YouTube and you'll find my channel. And then, consulting. I do health consulting. I have limited numbers at the moment, just because of mum's 24/7 coming back from a hip situation, but I do my best to help people there. And then I have a hyperbaric chamber if you're in New Plymouth, which unfortunately I can't transport that through the air to everybody. But so those are the best ways to reach out to me via the podcast. Of course, I'm on Instagram at Lisa Tamati. Don't do a hell of a lot on there. I do mostly stuff on podcasts and YouTube. Are the best places. And my email, just support@lisatamati.com, and me or one of my managers will be able to point you in the right direction to take some steps if you want to talk and have a consult or do any of those types of things. That'd be wonderful. And my books are on my podcast, so on my website. Sorry, so I have 3 books. I've got 2 running books, Running Hot and Running to Extremes, and then Relentless is the story of Mum's first round with the aneurysm and the stroke. It doesn't include the cancer stuff. I have to write another one. And then I've written that book, which is an audio book. I shouldn't say I've written it. It's an audio book, What Your Oncologist Isn't Telling You, and that's the interviews with all of those amazing doctors and scientists and researchers, so that you have it all in one place. So if you're dealing with cancer, that's a huge resource. It took me 2 years to curate all of that, and it's a very powerful resource, and I add to that periodically as well when I get another great researcher in the mix and share that as well. So that one's available on my shop as well at lisatamati.com.
I just want to say a big hug to your husband.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't he? Yeah.
So that to put up with you. I mean, I love you. I love you. But can you imagine how you're like a dog with a bone? It'd be he'd be trying to talk to you about something and you'd go, did you know
exactly
the BP3157 and what it does? I could just
it's so true. Like I am just like he's just an absolute angel, and I drive him nuts, and nobody else would put up with me. Like if he left me, I'm buggered. That's it. I'll be alone for the rest of my life. There's just no other man that could cope with my nuttiness. And yet he does it so beautifully because I
think Cindy's the same. She's on the next thing. She gets her teeth on a dog and a bone, like a dog with a bone, and she's in it. I love you both. You're amazing. Incredible researchers.
Just don't want to marry us.
Yeah, I do. And I also like to sleep with you when we go traveling, lie in the same bed, because I figure if I touch you, I get it via osmosis. I'm just saying.
You always smell amazing when you're around me, Kimmy.
I just think on behalf of those of us who are not as I don't want to say the word qualified, because you're both qualified in such different areas of work and what you do, but in honor of those of us who just love to listen to people like you two, who are vigilant and tenacious in your standing for health and wellness for all. I just want to congratulate you, Lisa, on behalf of us, but also you too, Cindy. You're both phenomenal women, and it is such a treat to share you here on our Up for a Chat podcast, and I cannot wait to hear you speak live at the next conference, wherever that might be, and also your podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on the Up for a Chat podcast, beautiful girl.
Thank you, my beautiful, wonderful friends, and just keep putting that positivity out in the world. You just, it's people like you that make me want to keep going, because there are people who get it. And you're just fantastic, and I just love what you put out into the world too. So thank you both, and let's get you on my show.
One last word from me. Right back at you, Kim Morrison.
Yeah. So you're as extreme as we are.
And thank you, Lisa. I've just so much enjoyed this hour, so I really appreciate your knowledge and your time.
You're welcome. Anytime, you girls.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.